All right, let's dive into some fascinating stories today. We're taking a deep dive into the world of early Islamic mysticism with Muslim saints and mystics. These tales, compiled by Farid and Attar, are full of these amazing figures, these saints and mystics.
Yeah, Attar's book, it's called the Tadkirat Aliyah,
Yeah.
Memorial of the Saints.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's not just like, here's a bunch of biographies. It's really more of a guide for spiritual seekers.
Oh, I like that, a guidebook.
Yeah.
So set the stage for us, though. For those who might not be familiar, what exactly is Sufism?
Okay, so imagine like a path within Islam that really emphasizes this direct personal experience of connecting with God,
Yeah.
right? That's Sufism at its heart.
Okay, so it's not just about, like, the rituals and the outward practices.
Exactly. It's about purifying yourself from the inside out, letting go of all those worldly desires we talked about, and cultivating this, like, all-consuming love for God.
And Attar, our author, he wasn't just some, like, casual observer of this world, right?
Yeah.
He painstakingly put together this memorial of the saints.
Oh, yeah. He was a respected Sufi poet, a scholar himself, didn't just, write down rumors he heard.
Hmm.
Attar, he really dug deep. He used these oral histories passed down, looked at older texts, and wove in his own deep understanding of Sufism.
Wow. And that's what makes it so valuable.
Definitely.
And here's something I find so intriguing. These Sufi saints, they weren't all from the same walk of life, were they? I mean, we're talking scholars, governors, people who had absolutely nothing, even royalty in the mix.
Yeah, totally.
Like, take Hasan of Basra, for instance. Attar describes how he was literally in line for serious wealth and power, but then, boom, some encounter, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
What could be so powerful that it makes someone turn away from comfort like that and embrace, like, intense piety?
Well, the story goes that Hassan, he was out hunting one day. He comes across this ruined castle.
Yeah.
And on the wall, there's an inscription. And it was simple but powerful. It said, "Pleasure is fleeting, but remorse is enduring."
Wow.
And that just hit him hard. It made him realize how temporary all those worldly things are
Yeah.
and how important your actions are in the eyes of God.
Hmm.
And that was it. He gave up his wealth, devoted himself to a life of, piety and seeking a deeper truth.
That's a serious shift in perspective.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you see that idea that renouncing material wealth leads to spiritual richness. It's huge in Sufi tradition.
And it speaks to what we value, right? Like what's truly important.
Exactly.
And then there's Malek ibn Dinar. He's a great example of this too. He was the son of a slave,
Wow.
rose to become this amazing calligrapher, an expert on the Quran even. But still, he chooses this path of extreme piety.
Oh, yeah. But Attar talks about his incredible discipline. Like, imagine for years he refused to eat certain foods as a form of spiritual practice.
That's some serious willpower, right? It reminds me of like athletes in those intense training montages,
Yeah.
Giving up all the good stuff to reach their peak.
Yeah. And for these Sufi saints, it's like their peak was that connection with God. And speaking of big life changes, we've got to talk about Ibrahim ibn Adham. He was a prince. His story kind of reminds me of the Buddha.
Really?
Yeah. He gave up a life of total privilege to wander as an ascetic.
I can't even imagine just walking away from that kind of power. What were the trials that pushed him to make such a drastic change?
Well, Attar says Ibrahim was really troubled by how temporary everything felt. Possessions, power, all of it. And one day, he's on this royal hunt, chasing a gazelle, and get this, the gazelle turns to him and speaks, asks him why he's wasting time on distractions when he has a real purpose to fulfill.
Wait, a talking gazelle? That's wild.
Right. It shows you that for Sufis, these moments of awakening can come from anywhere. Attar also talks about Ibrahim's encounters with his mystical guide, Khizr.
Khizr, yeah, he pops up a lot, but remind me.
Right, so he's this mysterious figure in Islamic tradition, kind of a prophet, saint, some even say angel.
Okay.
The point is, he has this hidden knowledge, and he guides those who are seeking, a deeper understanding of God.
Like a spiritual mentor.
Exactly, appearing at these key moments to help people along.
So Ibrahim, he went through these trials, these encounters, and he chose to focus on something bigger than himself.
Totally. And this brings us to another fascinating thing about Attar's book, the miracles. These saints, they were said to perform some pretty amazing things.
Right, but I'm guessing it's not just about wowing people with magic tricks.
Exactly. Attar's not just trying to impress us. He's using these miracles to show how deeply connected these saints were to God. Like, take Habib al-Jami, sometimes called the Persian. He couldn't memorize the Quran.
Which, that's a pretty big deal in Islam.
Huge deal. But through pure devotion, He was able to access these amazing spiritual insights.
So it's not about the rote memorization.
No, it's about the essence of faith.
That's powerful.
It is. And the miracles attributed to him are amazing. For example, Attar says food would just appear in his house, enough to feed him and anyone who came seeking knowledge or help.
It's like God providing for those who, in turn, provide for others.
Exactly. And then there's Rabe'a al-Adawiya. She's a super important figure, especially for women in Sufism. She really emphasized this idea of divine love within Islam.
What do you mean by divine love?
So it's about loving God purely for the sake of love, not because you're afraid of punishment or you want something in return.
Unconditional, basically.
Yes. And Attar tells this story about her. It's almost surreal. So one night, she's deep in prayer, and she's holding a bucket of water and a torch. Someone asks, why a torch? It's a full moon. And she says, I want to set fire to paradise with this torch and extinguish the flames of hell with this water. That way, people will worship God truly, not out of fear or desire, but simply for love.
Wow. That's intense. It really makes you think about what motivates us, right? Are we driven by fear, by reward, or by something pure?
Exactly. And that's what I love about these stories. They challenge us to look inward, to examine our own hearts.
Yeah, they're not just entertaining tales. They make you question your own assumptions about, what it means to be a good person.
Totally. They're like, hey, maybe true wealth isn't about what you own, but what you're willing to give up. And they highlight this idea of service, of caring for others, like the story of al-Ayaz. He was known for his incredible piety, but get this, he used to be a highwayman.
You're kidding? A highwayman turned devout mystic? That's a plot twist.
Right. But that's Attar's point, I think. Even someone who strayed from the path can find redemption, can achieve this incredible spiritual growth.
So he went from highway robbery to, extreme piety. What sparked that change?
Well, Attar says Ayaz was overcome with remorse. He devoted himself to a life of service, even returning stolen gold to a robber he encountered.
Seriously, he gave it back.
He did. He trusted that God would honor, I guess you could say, his end of the bargain for his past sins.
That's a whole other level of faith, isn't it? Like saying, my past actions don't define me. My belief in something bigger does.
Totally. And that brings us to another amazing figure, Bashir ibn al-Harith. He was famous for his humility. He often walked barefoot as a sign of his devotion.
I've heard of him. Didn't Attar tell this story about him walking on water?
He did. But here's the twist. Instead of being, proud of this miraculous feat, it actually makes Bashir question his own progress compared to his student.
Wow, that's really humbling.
Right. It shows that even outward signs of spiritual power, they don't compare to genuine inner transformation. Bashir's walking on water, as amazing as it was, couldn't hold a candle to his student's quiet, steady growth.
It's a good reminder that true knowledge isn't about showing off or even just accumulating facts. It's about inner change.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a really important theme in Sufism, the paradox of knowledge. These stories are not just about learning information. They're about how true understanding can transform you from the inside out.
And when we talk about pushing the boundaries of knowledge, Abu Yazid al-Bestami definitely comes to mind. He was this really intriguing and some might say controversial figure known for these bold statements about his oneness with God.
Oh yeah, Abu Yazid, he loved to use paradoxes. But that was intentional. He wanted to shake people out of their ordinary way of thinking, show them that true knowledge goes beyond our limited human understanding.
Attar mentions this one, saying, the third time I entered the holy house, I saw neither the house nor the Lord of the house. I mean, how do you even wrap your head around that?
It's about recognizing how limited our perception really is. The holy house, you could see that as our own narrow understanding of God. And by going beyond that, by not seeing, Abu Yazid is hinting at a direct experience of the divine that goes beyond those limits.
So to truly understand, you have to let go of trying to understand.
In a way, yes. It's about surrendering to something larger than ourselves, being open to a reality that we may never fully grasp.
These stories, they offer a completely different perspective, don't they? They challenge us to reconsider our own beliefs about faith, about knowledge, about how we connect with something bigger than ourselves.
They do. They invite us to go on our own journeys of self-discovery.
To let go of those old ways of thinking and open ourselves up to new possibilities. So to our listener, we leave you with this. What resonated with you most in these tales? Was it the dramatic life changes, the miracles that defied logic, the thought-provoking sayings? What will you carry with you from this deep dive into the world of Muslim saints and mystics?
Attar's Memorial of the Saints, it's a gift, really. It's a reminder that the search for truth, for meaning, It's an individual journey, and often the most profound discoveries are the ones we make within ourselves.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep seeking. You never know what wonders you might find.